What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916, and you tune into another edition of my vlog. Want to say thank you for subscribing. Thanks for all the support. You know, I like to stay motivating you guys and spreading the positivity. And I just want to tell you guys a crazy story, man, about just how petty the game has gotten. You know, I don't want to give up any names, man, but a friend of mine told me a cold story about how he went to jail over some damn cologne. Yeah, you heard me correct. Cologne. The stuff you spray on your body to smell good. Man, I couldn't believe it, man. So let me break it down to you how he told me the story. So, you know, everybody has a hustle to some degree. And you know, people do what they have to do to make extra dollar. Well, anyways, the homie was buying cologne from another so-called friend of his that worked at a high-end department store. And this individual worked in the cologne department and had access to all kinds of the colognes and the display models. So, you know, whenever they sell cologne, they have display models that they have out so that you can smell what the cologne smells like. And then underneath the counter, they have the bottles that are for sale, which come into fancy boxes and wrapping and all that. Well, his so-called friend had access to multiple boxes of display cologne, and basically said that, you know, these colognes, they weren't the cheap kind. These are, I'm talking about, you know, the starting prices were $400, $500. You know, some of these bottles of colognes are upwards of $600-$700. These aren't cheap colognes. It's not like your cheap bullshit. This is really high-end cologne. So the guy was like, yeah, man, I can get you these colognes at a premium. And what he was doing was getting the display colognes and slanging them to my homeboy. And, you know, the homie was getting them and, you know, using them for himself, and had friends that wanted some. So, you know, he was doing his thing with him. And he had known this guy for over a year and a half, 2 years, knew the guy's wife and kids. And I guess at some point he had got some colognes from the guy. And mind you, that the guy was giving them to my homie in the boxes from the store. So, you know, the barcode and everything was on the boxes. And so he knew they were display models because they didn't have the fancy wrapping or packaging. And anyways, he had got a couple bottles of cologne, and one of the bottles at the time when he got it was short. Probably about a quarter of the bottle. So, you know, a couple ounces. And he pointed out to him, took pictures of them, showed him the bottles, the differences in the you know, in the sizes as far as the liquid, and told him, say, hey man, you know, I paid a lot of money, you know, and you know, we're friends, so I'm just gonna switch these out next time I see you. He said, okay, no problem. So apparently, the next time he seen him, he was gonna purchase like probably close to $4 or $5 grand worth of cologne from him. And he met the dude at a local gas station. And he told the guy, hey man, I'm gonna switch the bottle out that was short. And the guy is like, oh man, no, you know, I gotta give somebody this and do that and that, and you can't switch it out. He's like, no, I'm gonna switch it out. I told you that the bottle was short. I showed you the pictures. And I can't do nothing with it because it's a used bottle. You gave me a used bottle. I'm gonna switch it out. He says, "Oh man, you know, don't you can't switch it out." But he said, "No, I'm switching it out. You know, dude, come on. You know, I'm switching it out. I told you, you gave me a bunk bottle." So he basically, the guy handed him all the clones, and he didn't make a big deal of it. And the guy says, "Hey man, you know," as he drove away, he called him and said, "Hey man, if you don't bring that cologne back, I'm gonna call the cops." He said, you're going to call the cops over a bottle that was stolen that you gave me that was short? he's like, and I've been doing business with you for, X amount of time. He said, man, you got to be kidding me, man. Get the hell out of here. And he didn't pay it no mind. And he said a few minutes later, he noticed a helicopter and cop cars driving by on his way to the grocery store. So he thought, man, something's weird. And so he called the guy, and when he called him, Officer so-and-so picked up the phone. And he said, hello? Yeah, Mr. So-and-so, can you bring the colognes back? And he's like, yeah. So he hung the phone up, and he's like, this MF, man, I can't believe he called the cops. And so he goes back, and he gets back to the gas station that he met the guy at, and the cops are there, like 3 cars deep, and then 3 more cars show up, helicopters circling above, over some cologne, I mind you. This is how effed up the game is. The guy's there, and he says, come get your cologne. He takes the cologne from the cops, and then he tells the cops, okay, and the cop says, no, it's not okay. You called, you said you were robbed, therefore we gotta report this as a robbery. So the homie gets taken away to jail. Now, because of robbery, his bail is $100,000. He has to call his wife, get an attorney, and, work out a deal with the attorney, which cost him a couple grand. So he tells the attorney exactly what happens. Luckily, this guy is hella, on top of it, and he goes back to the gas station with one of the officers, I guess, that was involved, looks at the videotape of him and the guy laughing, smiling at each other, handing him the bags, and, none of the stuff was taken by force. And the case, this gets dismissed before it even gets any further. So he was in jail, 2 days at this point, or like roughly 48 hours. And then it took another, 12, 14 hours to get processed and get released. But it cost him roughly 3 days in jail and a couple of grand over 2 ounces of cologne. 2 ounces of cologne that this guy he was buying it from was stealing from his work. But he was so petty that he didn't want to give the homie a full bottle of cologne. Thus, he decided to call the cops and say he was robbed, reporting a false robbery. The game is shit, man. The game is shit. So if somebody's going to call the cops over you over a couple of ounces of cologne, you guys run around talking about sliding and doing all this other stuff, you ain't got a chance in hell. You are going down. Hey, man, be smart, watch your friends, and dude, it's a whole nother generation of sucker butt hustlers out there. Big Herc 916.
See, a lot of people try to flow through life on just talent alone. It gets them to the door, and maybe even through the door in some instances, but it doesn't allow them to take their game to the next level. Because we start talking about the 1% or the 0.5% that are out there who are at the top of the food chain. Everybody has talent. But let me tell you something about somebody who works hard. When you work hard and you have medial talent, you can go further than that person who has great talent because they're lazy. See, they got there because of pure skill. Without effort, it just came.